I think that the other big thing, especially in today's world, man, it's like a instant gratification, man. There's so much dopamine getting flooded at even a child's level, you know what I mean? Like the kids watching the iPads and these different things, and then it becomes just easy because as parents, we're like, they're not bugging us, they're being good. They're getting this inordinate amount of dopamine that now to work for something, to build patience, to wait for something to show up that you actually desire, to be patient to see that next level come to fruition. Because patience, it's an attitude that you keep while you're waiting for the result to come. Patience is what attitude are you keeping while you're going through the process, but yet you don't see the progress or the evidence that it's gonna happen. Are you still optimistic? Are you still thinking big? Are you still looking through a filter of faith? That's patience.
Whatever area of your life you're trying to get better in, let me just encourage you, don't give up. Keep going, keep planting good seeds, because in due time, you will reap a harvest. You may be trying to level up your relationship and get closer together with your wife or with your husband. And the fruit of the seeds they've been planting, you don't see them yet, but in due time, right? You might be trying to, like what you said, get a six pack. You don't see it yet, but in due time, you might be trying to save money. It's not looking good in the bank account, but in due time, you will reap a harvest. So be encouraged. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the A Leveled Up Life podcast. My name is Brandon Courtney, along with Paul McLean, and this podcast is all about helping you level up your life in the areas that matter most: your faith, your family, your fitness, your finances, and your franchise. We're trying to help you close the gap from where you are to where you know you could and you should be. Today, man, we have a phenomenal topic. I'm excited to jump into this. We want to talk about creating habits that hold momentum. So many of us, man, we have these big goals, dreams, aspirations, resolutions to start the year, but how do we create those habits that help sustain the momentum to not just make them last for a month, but actually make them last for a long time?
Yeah.
That's the goal, right?
That's the goal, man. Hey, and by the way, if you haven't noticed, we got iPads out, baby. So
we're getting smarter every
I remember
week.
one person said, if you laminate something, that something just became important.
That's right.
And when you bring out a laptop, man, you know we got something to teach and say. And every week our desire is the same, man. We want to bring great value to you. It's an honor and privilege to have you guys join us every single week. And so today we've got some things that we want to, have a deep dive into that's going to make a difference for you guys as you, you're on this process of leveling up your life in these areas that matter most. In fact, if you have not grabbed a pen, a piece of paper, something to take notes on an iPad, man, grab it, because I promise you today, you're going to leave and say, okay, I got some practical things that if I put these in place, I can in fact see my life progress. I can in fact see my family level up, my faith, my finance, my franchise, my fitness. We're going to kind of dive into all these things. And so, man, this is a topic that it just matters so much. And it's an honor to host this topic with you, brother. And so let's get into it, man. The momentum part of it, I think it's kind of like a great example of showing momentum is like the NBA now.
Yeah.
Right? You're wearing the Lakers hat. Like NBA can shift in 1 second where you're like, dude, this team sucks. I've thought that. I'm watching a team, right? They're losing by like 30 points. You go on like a 27-0 run.
Yeah.
And you start thinking like, why does that team even play in the NBA? Like they're that bad. And then all of a sudden, right when you start thinking that way, it flips. And then they go on like a 8-0 run, and that team ends up winning. And you're thinking like, dude, I don't even know what to think now. And I think that's what momentum is. When you've got it, it makes you look better than you are.
That's right.
And when you don't got it, you look worse than you actually are.
Well, it's like one of those things. It's hard to get, but once you got it, then it's hard to stop.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what can we do that when you have the momentum, when things are going good, when you're on that roll, when you're making that comeback, when you're doing the right things, what do we put in place to keep that momentum going? Because it's like, man, once it's gone, it's hard to get back. I remember I was really getting big into fitness a couple years ago. And I was taking my boys to jiu-jitsu classes. I think Penelope was going, and we were kind of taking our kids there. And I remember just sitting in these classes over and over and over again. And eventually the instructors were like, dude, why don't you come take a class? And I was like, no, I'm good, man. I just want to watch. But eventually they got me and suckered me into taking a jiu-jitsu class. And I started, building momentum. I was going to class like 3-4 days a week. And they're like, hey, man, why don't you go to a tournament coming up? I think you'd crush it. It's more of like a beginner style tournament. And so I was really into it, man. My fitness or excuse me, I was starting to eat better, starting to eat clean because they're like, you got to lose like 20 pounds to get in this tournament. And so, dude, I was on a roll, man. I usually walk around like almost 200 pounds. Like, dude, you got to get to 178. So I was doing everything. I was fasting. I was juicing, working out. And I remember we went to spring break. Remember that?
Yeah.
Palm Springs, spring break.
I remember that. Hey, and by the way, dude, I also remember, for one, you did look good,
dude,
bro.
I look good, bro. I was getting lean.
You did. And he was learning how to fight. So
That's
like,
right.
he could fight you in the spirit, man.
And in the natural, baby.
And the
Let's
natural.
go.
And the funny thing is about that, dude, when we went, it was during COVID.
Yeah.
And like, our boy was the one that kept the studio open. And we're like, dude, we got a bunch of kids. And I cannot live in this house without a break and these kids not doing something extracurricular. So that's when we found like, hey, let's put them in the MMA because they were doing soccer. And the funny thing is, like, I remember making the same decision. Like, they had the family plan. I'm like, I'm about to sign my family up too. I'm going to go.
Right.
And I realized the hardest belt you could ever get is a white belt.
Yep.
And he said, no, it's a black belt. No, it's a white belt because most don't start. And your boy, I never started. Right? I never started. And then I remember hearing Alex say, and all a black belt is a consistent white belt.
Yep.
And I was like, that's pretty deep, man. And we're going to tie into that too today.
Well, dude, let me say this. I'm a white belt with one stripe. Let's go.
There you go. Okay. Leveled up.
I leveled up, man. But anyways, we were in Palm Springs. I was in shape. My tournament was like 6 days away. I had all this momentum going into this tournament. I felt good. I was eating right. And then I took Brave, my 4-year-old, he's probably 2 at the time, took him down the slide. There was a little piece of plastic that was poking out on the slide and it cut my arm. And of course, I kept playing, kept getting in the water, chlorine, jacuzzi. 2 days later, man, I got that infection in my arm, sent me to the hospital for 4 days, had some sort of infection from the cut, from the blood. I didn't take care of it right, missed my tournament, right? And then all of a sudden, this month of momentum, these 6 months of momentum leading into this 1 week, I lost it in a moment. And then what I did was I kept telling myself, like, all right, I'm going to heal my arm. Then I'm going to get back into jiu-jitsu class. I'm going to get back in the gym. I'm going to start eating right again. And then the gap was so big between, like the hurt, the pain, and then getting back into class. And so I was like, oh, I'll do it Monday. I'll do it next week. And then next week, now here we are, almost a year and a half later, and I haven't been back to
everybody's
jiu-jitsu class.
Plan,
but it's like this momentum is here, everything is here, and then one little thing stops you, and it's like, dude, it's so hard to get it back, man. So,
well, the funny thing is, man, like, and I don't know if you guys can relate to this or not, but my wife, she, for a long time, she was like, I'm gonna start a diet. I was like, all right, babe. She's like, I'm gonna start on Monday. And usually that was like, if it was Sunday or Saturday, she's like, I'm gonna start it on Monday. And I was like, all right, Monday sounds good. And then once Monday came, and she didn't start it, then it was tomorrow. So I was like, I'm gonna start it tomorrow, and I'm gonna start it tomorrow. I'm gonna start it tomorrow.
Yep.
And by the way, a year would go by and it was always tomorrow or Monday. And it's so easy to do that because what it does is it makes us feel good in the temporary moment of like how we feel doing the thing that we know we shouldn't be doing, which is just sitting there engaging in the same habitual behavior that we know is keeping us at a lower level. But we got to get back to that, and it's tough, man. I think that one of the things that is easy to do, like when you're going after something, now we're into the first quarter of the year. And for a lot of you guys, you've had these New Year's resolutions of things that you wanted to accomplish. And it's easy though, once you kind of have a bad day, or maybe it's a bad couple days, to just say, screw it. Like, I'm just going to let it go. And sometimes it's unconscious, right? Like yours, Brand. And sometimes it's just like, maybe I'll just put it off a little bit longer, right? And it's almost like if you're driving down the road, this is how I think about it. If you're crossing a gap, right? You're where you're at right now and you're saying, man, my destination is there. Like, that's where I want to go. My destination for my family, fitness, franchise, business, income, all of it's there. On your way to that path, you got to know that you're going to get a popped tire. But if you popped your tire, like you're running over boom, it pops. Would you get out of your car and be like, oh my God, I got a popped tire? You take out a shank or blade or a knife and you decide to go cut all 3 of your tires and say, screw it. No, man, you get out, you fix your tire, you keep moving forward.
But that's what we do.
Yeah.
Like, dude, one little thing happens and we just say, forget it. It's over. Let me stop doing this. Let me stop eating healthy again. What's the point?
Yep.
Let me stop saving. What's the point? Let me stop whatever it is. What's the point of it? And it's like, man, all those good seeds that we sowed for so long, because we didn't see the harvest of it right away, or because we never, made it to the destination because one little hiccup happened.
Yep.
It's like, forget it, man. And then we're just stuck living this normal, mundane life, knowing that, man, there's
more.
bigger and better, there's more for us, but we just get caught. And it's like, we don't want that for you. We
Right.
want you to get to the place where you know you could be. So how do we close that gap? Like, how do we lessen the risk, I would say? Because life happens, right?
Yep.
Like pop tires happen, cuts on your arms happen. Like, life is crazy sometimes. So when those things do happen in your life, how do you not lose the momentum? How do you ensure yourself that, hey, this is not going to set me back, but it's actually going to be the thing that helps me propel forward and keeps the momentum going and doesn't just stop it all along? Like, how do we get to that point? How do we lessen the risk?
There's a couple big points that we should dive into. So probably about 3 that we'll cover. And Brian, why don't you take the first one on, like, what is the thing that holds you back? Because most people kind of have the same kind of desire. Like, you know, you're living this life right now. And I know for myself, like every Sunday, I spend some time reflecting, and I kind of go through what I call like roles and goals. And I'll look and say, okay, man, I'm a husband. So like related to that part of me, like, how am I doing? You know, what does that look like? It's kind of like a checkup, because if I'm not aware of it, man, I don't know how to go. And so I'll say, all right, what's something I can implement and put in that's going to help me go to the next level? So I've got all these desires, but then too often, like you said, man, like I've got these things written down, but it's harder to execute than it is to write it down and know in your mind what you're looking for. So like, why is that such a thing? You know, and before I pass it, there's one thing I thought about, man, like as a source of encouragement, right? Like the Apostle Paul wrote most of the New Testament, you know, and in Romans, it talks about him saying like, man, I know I want to do good, but I continue to do what's bad.
Right.
I know what I want, but I don't do it. Like, what a wretched, like, sinful man I am. And he goes into this, and you're thinking when you read it, like, dude, this guy's jacked up.
Yeah.
And if you're like I am, I'm like, dude, that's kind of like I am, you know? And then as it progresses, it gets to a point where he's like speaking with this level of like maturity and wisdom of like, you know, I've experienced like the feast and the famine and the hunger and to want all these things, but I found contentment. And then he kind of dives into it
through Christ.
Yeah. So how do you go from there to there? And what we're going to talk about is that what we believe is what took place from that man that's saying those things to the leveled up man that's saying different things. So what's like the first one that kind of keeps us from winning?
Yeah, I was thinking the first one is this: focus. Too many of us, we focus on the what instead of focusing on the how. For example, we all have New Year's resolutions, right? We all have dreams, goals, things that we want to accomplish. And a lot of us are more similar than we even think. So like most of us, we want to be healthier physically. Most of us want to save more money and make more money. Most of us want a better marriage, a better relationship, a better whatever it is. We all have similar goals. And what we do is we focus on the big picture. Like, man, I really want that thing. And then because it seems so far off, we don't do anything, any action steps to actually get there, because it seems like, well, it's too hard, it's too much, the gap is too big, how do I even start? And so most people focus on the what instead of the how, right? And so instead of focusing on that, focus on how I could actually get there. What's the daily disciplines? What's the habits? What's the structure? What's the systems that I can create in my life that help me get there? So focus on the how do I actually do it. For example, a couple years ago when we started the church, man, I really had this dream in my heart that we were going to reach the city. Like, I had the vision for it. I had what I felt like was a word from God. Like, hey, I had been released from my leaders in my ministry role. Like, God had given the vision. God had given me like the dream to actually go do it. Man, we're going to reach the city. We're going to, by the power of the Holy Spirit, like bring so many of our friends and family into a building, into a church where they just feel loved and connected and cared for. And we're going to have an amazing online presence and social media, all these just big dreams, big vision. Yeah. But it was just that until I actually put action steps behind them. And so instead of just saying like, I got this big goal, instead of just saying I have this big dream, it's like, let's focus on not the what, but the how. How do we actually make these things come to pass? And now 2.5 years later, we're sitting in answered prayers because we put action steps behind the what and we focus on the how. So for example, I started sharing with people like about the dream, the vision, the goal, the church that I had in mind. We started meeting on Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Remember those days?
Yep.
We started meeting with people. We started putting, different ministries in place. We started creating systems and habits. We started raising money. We started, printing flyers. We started doing all the how to get to the what. And so I think for a lot of people,
good.
start putting real systems, structures. Think about how I can get to this. It's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yep.
Like my dad used to always tell me, because he owns a cleaning business, where we would bid on these very, very large accounts, and we would do these walkthroughs with like a bunch of other businesses. And he would go, hey, listen, everyone's walking around looking at this 100,000 square foot building. But Brandon, you want to know how you clean this building? I'm like, how? Because it seems overwhelming. He goes, one toilet at a time. It's the same thing with your goals, man. If you think about like, man, my goal is to have this huge thing. It's like, dude, this seems overwhelming. This is crazy. It's so far out of reach. Well, how do you get there? One prayer at a time, one discipline at a time, one thank you at a time, one just like good seed at a time. And then over that time, you'll look back and you'll begin to reap the harvest of all the good seeds that you sowed, man. So I don't know. What do you think that is kind of reasons that people don't succeed or keep the momentum in chasing after their dreams?
Yeah, well, dude, for one, that's a big point, because you're 100% right. Like everybody has these similar goals that they want to go after, but it's that how,
Yeah.
So today it's like, hey, can you focus on like the how behind it? Like, what it is, and keep the what in front of you, because the what motivates you,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like the what's kind of like the why. Like, I'm motivated to pay the price, because the how kind of can suck, right? Like you gotta do stuff, right? And you gotta get uncomfortable to do those things. And life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
That's
And God
good.
shows up typically to go to work on your behalf, to show it's his strength and it's his hand on the other side of you getting uncomfortable. Most, the passive Christians sit back and say, if it's up to him, it'll happen. It's like, no, he wants you to do something.
That's right.
Like you're giving a bad representation. God's looking down and saying, like, I don't want you to connect my name to what you got going on. Like that ain't my intention. And I think that the other big thing, especially in today's world, man, think about it. It's like a instant gratification, man. There's so much dopamine getting flooded at even a child's level. You know what I mean? Like the kids watching the iPads and these different things, and then it becomes just easy, because as parents we're like, well, they're not bugging us. They're being good. It's like, yeah, but like they're getting this unordinate amount of dopamine that now it's like, to work for something, to build patience, to wait for something to show up that you actually desire, to be patient to see that next level come to fruition. Because patience is really like, it's an attitude that you keep while you're waiting for the result to come.
That's good.
It's not just like, let me just be patient and like, no, patience is what attitude are you keeping while you're going through the process, but yet you don't see the progress or the evidence that it's going to happen. Are you still optimistic? Are you still thinking big? Are you still looking through a filter of faith? That's patience. And so I think point two is like, people just, they don't see progress fast enough. So if I don't see progress fast enough, man, is it really worth it? So now you're tying the pain to no payoff, and the disparity between, man, I paid for something. I had to sacrifice something, whether that's time, energy, money, effort, emotion, resources, and you don't see the payoff. Well, now you've got this kind of disappointment sets in. You're like, is it really worth it? And I think that gives people kind of two conclusions. One is, what I'm doing right now, does it really matter that much? That little quick 10-minute workout, that 30-minute workout, doesn't matter that much, because after a week or two, I still lift up my shirt and there ain't no six pack. Like, so does it really matter that much? Or I read a scripture, but man, I still have these thoughts. I still kind of feel this way about myself, and I'm starting to read it, but I still feel this way. Or that could be your finances. Man, I started to pay myself first. I finally this year decided, like, this is the year where I'm not going to be, flat broke. I'm going to start disciplines and habits to get out of that. But after 4 or 5 months, you've been saving, maybe $100 a month. You're like, dude, I got $600.
Yeah.
But reality is this: that's the lie, that if you buy it, it'll keep you at your lower level. The truth is that your life is a sum total of all these small little choices done over a long period of time, and the compound effect will go to work in your life on your behalf. But you got to realize that those small wise decisions, they do matter. The great lie that causes people to fail on their pursuit to level up is that these small, little wise decisions, they really don't matter all that much. That's a lie. The second thing is that these small, unwise decisions don't matter that much because they do. Like, and then that's where the compromise kind of sets in. And Brian, to the story that you were talking about getting hurt, and then, well, it started just like a little compromise, and
Right.
then you've got some justifiable reason to say like, well, it's because, dude, and I remember you came and preached that Sunday, and
Yeah.
dude, you're white as a ghost,
I
man.
know.
Like, yeah, I was like, he's gonna pass out, and I'm gonna have to get up there and like, catch him or something. But dude, like, and then you got the bad thing is when you got an excuse that looks like it's good enough for you to buy it and feel good about yourself.
That's good.
Then it's so much easier to go into that compromise, and all of a sudden you're slowly going down and going down and going down. And before you know it, you look up, you're like, man, I was trying to go there. How did I end up here? I was trying to fly from California to New York. How did I end up in Wisconsin? Well, it was a little bit off over a long time. In the
Gets you in the wrong
beginning,
direction.
yeah, like if I'm flying from here to like, Vegas, I could be 1 degree off and land pretty close to Vegas. 1 degree off, I might be shooting for New York, man. I end up in Florida.
That's right.
It's just the distance that takes place, the time that happens. So I think that's a big, big thing, is to understand that they all matter quite a bit, right? And they're all working together. And it's just like boiling water, right? Like it has that tipping point where it looks the same, and I don't remember the degrees, but there's a degree that it shifts. Michael, do you know the degree?
211 between 211 and 212.
Okay, is it?
Water begins to boil.
All right,
Yep.
so at
I think. Look it up.
all right,
Put it in the comments.
Yeah, 210. We'll go 210. It looks the same, but it looks the same. So you've got the heat on. You're doing something, man. You're heating up. You're heating up. You're heating up. But you're like, dude, there's no change in the water. In that 1 degree, dude.
Yep.
Now that changes everything. Now you got boiling water, and that boiling water, man, it has a significantly different effect on anything that goes into it than it did prior, right? And what you also got to realize is too, like, that boiling water, it happens in that tipping point, and then everybody's looking at you like, like, man, they just look at them. They just kind of had it. They just had it. They had the thing.
Overnight success.
Yes, they had the thing that I ain't got.
Yep.
What they don't realize is, man, all the late nights, early morning,
Yep.
all the doubt where they didn't believe that they could really do, but they pushed through the doubt, all the fear, right? And I remember that as I was in the insurance industry, and man, I kind of got to a high level of selling pretty quick. At 20, I was a top 10 producer nationwide in selling life insurance and financial services, and people be like, oh, he just got it. But they don't realize that, dude, I was working 100 hours a week. I'd leave and drive to Bakersfield at 5 a.m. And before Bakersfield, I would be driving to, Stanislaus, like Modesto. And so I'd leave at 4 a.m., 4:30 to get to my first appointment. And then I was just trying to build my income. So I was putting it all back into business. I was living my same lifestyle. I was getting staff. I was like, I'm putting it all back in. And I get back home at like 4 a.m., right? And on that way there, most people are like, dude, you're crazy. Like, why do you do that? But what they don't realize is that on my way back home at like 12 o'clock at night, I had nobody to call. So what was I doing? I had already spent so many hours doing the craft that I was trying to get great at, building skill. And most people are a level away because of a bad habit, a bad thought process, and lacking skill. So I was building that skill. And on the way home, I had all that time to listen to experts in that craft, objection handling, what to say, what not to say, the psychology of it, that it was like a compound effect in my mind as far as building the right, myelin and neuroplasticity, because it was both at the same time. But from everybody else, like, oh, it was just overnight. No, man, it's those little things done over and over again. So it's a big deal.
That's really good.
So Brandon, what do you think number 3 would be?
Well, just to touch on what you're saying, let me just encourage some people out there, because there's a scripture that goes with this, Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary while doing good, for in due season you will reap a harvest. Like, that's a promise. That's a principle from God. Like, hey, whatever area of your life you're trying to get better in, let me just encourage you, don't give up. Keep going. Keep planting good seeds, because in due time, you will reap a harvest. You may be trying to level up your relationship and get closer together with your wife or with your husband. And the fruit of the seeds they've been planting, you don't see them yet, but in due time, Like you might be trying to, like what you said, get a six pack. You don't see it yet, but
Yeah.
in due time, you might be trying to save money. It's not looking good in the bank account, but in due time, you will reap a harvest. So be encouraged. Like I love everything that you said, man. It's like, it's so cool because we're men of faith. Like, and so all these success principles, and they all tie back into the word of God, man. Like God is so clear. Like just keep doing the right things over and over and over. And just because you don't see the result or the fruit of it yet,
it's coming.
You do it long enough, it's coming, man. But the same is true in the opposite.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you keep planting these seeds of doubt, seeds of fear, seeds of insecurity. It's like, dude, this is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like last week we talked about is creating these strongholds that you got to tear down over time and then replace it with the truth. So I love everything you said, man. It's good. The other reason I think people really don't succeed or keep the momentum is because of this. They have a distorted identity about who they are. Yeah. And that distorted identity then sabotages their success. It's like, man, they take what they see maybe in the mirror, or they take what they hear online and they don't like it, but then they begin to believe the lie of the enemy. They begin to believe the lie of their past mistakes, their past failures, their past dumb decisions. And then they begin to identify themselves with those things that are not of God, that are not pleasing, that are not moving them forward. And then that whole identity about who they are sabotages their whole success. Yeah. So it's like, man, I think, just not to get too preachy, but you think of all these different characters in the Bible, like Moses, man, he struggled with his identity. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like he was born an Israelite, but he was raised by the Egyptians. And so his whole life he battled back and forth. So what do? He ran away from the whole situation. He made a mistake. I'm getting out of here. And then what happens? He has this encounter with God, this burning bush moment where God then has to remind him of who he is, that God has to say, hey, you are going to be the man that frees my people, and I am with you. Like, so he has to restore his identity, but he's not the only one. Like all these different characters, you know, you got Peter who denied Jesus. You have Jacob who wrestled with God. You have Matthew who was a tax collector. You have all these different people, all these different characters throughout scripture that wrestled with their identity. And if you have the wrong identity, man, you really can't step into the thing that God has for you, because you see yourself one way, even though God says you're this, you don't really believe it, like deep down inside, because the evidence proves otherwise. Mm-hmm. But it's like, hey, we don't get our identity based on the things that we've done. We get our identity based on whose we are. And I think that most people, they just got to remind themselves, like, man, we all fall short. We all make mistakes. No matter what you see on the outside, no matter what Instagram tells you, no matter what, you know, everyone else's life around you may look like, we're all jacked up. That's right. We all got problems. We all got mistakes. But when you know who you are, when you have your identity rooted in who God says we are, man, then we can overcome the mistakes. Like, I'm not my mistakes. I'm not my failures. I'm not my dumb decisions. I am a child of God. I am an overcomer. I am more than enough. I have what it takes. And so when we could root our identity in that, then that propels us to succeed rather than sabotages our chances at success. And so, I don't know, man, there's just like, I've heard you say it like this before. Like, we got to focus on who we need to become, not just what we need to become. So it's almost like these who goals, not do goals. Like, talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, dude, for one, I mean, that's the truth. You know what I mean? And like, you think about, like, I mean, there's a lot of concepts and people that have gone through and seen success, and maybe they don't have that great faith, right? But when you look at the word and you can get the principles and concepts, and then you know the concepts because you've lived them or you've heard them, and then you tie them to the word, man, that's like the great activator. That's right. Because it's the absolute truth, and it just hits different. You know what I mean? Because we're created in that image. And so, man, I absolutely love that. And I think it's like, this is how I'd put it. Like, when you know who you are, you'll know what to do. So if you're clear about who you are, then it's like, okay, if I'm a disciplined person, I do disciplined things. If I'm a faithful person, I do faithful things. If I'm a person that values fitness, I do things of fitness. Like, I am that kind of person. See, I think that's the big deal. If you know who you are, you'll know what to do. And see, a healthy identity will create healthy habits, and healthy habits create a healthy identity.
That's good.
And bad identity, a negative identity that the enemy will get you to believe, because that's what it is. Like, when you just start thinking, like, because I've failed, therefore I'm a failure. No, man, like, that ain't the truth. But if we get caught up in our own self long enough and we don't get to consume good stuff, like even like a podcast like this, good content, get around people that can kind of say, hey man, no. Like that ain't the truth, right? Then all of a sudden we start to believe a lie. And if you believe a lie long enough, it'll affect you as if it is true. And so what identity do you have? I remember Brand, so I mean, technology has gone, it's rapidly growing. But when Sonos came out, dude, it was a big deal. And I was like one of those, I'm usually not the, what is it, like the first, what are they called? Like the first,
Like an early adopter.
yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah,
Early
yeah.
adopter, like the guy that's like,
Waiting in line at Best Buy.
yeah,
Yeah.
the new iPhone's out, so I'm going to wait 12 and a half hours with a tent because I got to be the first one with it. And in 2 days, you can go just walk in.
Right.
Which I'm not hating on you. If that's you, like, hey, we love you, man.
We're
Like,
praying for
God
you.
loves you.
Yeah.
But listen, that wasn't me. But the Sonos, I got a commercial came out. I'm like, dude, that's sick. I got to get it. So I got it like years ago. And then they came, so then they came out the Alexa speaker built in, right? And my 11-year-old Parker, when she was probably 8, it's about 3 years ago, we had just got it. She walks and she would always come home and she loved this song. It was Boomerang by JoJo Siwa. Remember that one?
No, I can't say I do.
Well, you will now because you got a girl. The boys probably won't listen to JoJo Siwa. But
Not a recommendation, but
yeah,
okay.
the girls loved this song Boomerang. So Parker'd come in and she'd always go to the speaker. The Alexis one was in the kitchen. She'd get home from school. Alexa played JoJo Siwa. It happened every day. Well, I came home one of the days and we had a Sonos speaker right by the front door. And like Parker's mad. She's yelling. She's like, play JoJo Siwa. And she's yelling at this thing. I'm like, Parker, what are you doing, baby? She's like, Dad, this stupid speaker, Alexa's not listening to me, you know? And I'm like, sweetheart, that speaker's not Alexa. She's like, well, this speaker looks a lot like Alexa, you know?
Yeah.
And what she didn't realize is that the manufacturer didn't build that speaker with the Alexa functionality and capabilities. And the reality is your maker didn't create you with the functionalities to believe the fact that you're not good enough, that you're never going to make it, that there's no levels above you, that it's ended, that you're at the final destination. No, if you still have breath in you, man, you've got a purpose before you. And see, he created you with these certain truths, these certain identities. And the moment that we can start to say them and believe them, it changes everything. So I would call them like some who goals, right? And so the who goal could be like, if I want to be a positive leader, a who goal I could have is something like, I'm a positive leader that encourages, uplifts, and motivates my people. And that could be like your who goal, right? And so what I'd encourage you guys, a quick like little challenge we'll give you is write down 3 who goals for yourself. So you know what you want to do, like you know what you want to accomplish, right? Who is that person going to be to do that? I call it like the 2.0 version, or maybe it's called a leveled up version. So that leveled up you, what would they do, right? And then write that in a written statement. And then every morning, repeat that out loud. I'm the, if it's, I'm going to be a positive person, man, I'm a positive leader in my house and in my business and in all areas of my life. I respond with the right attitude. Like maybe that is your who goal. And then once you've got that, you say, okay, today, what's the step I can take to really go out and show myself that, in fact, that is who I am? And so, Brand, maybe that's like sending a quick text of encouragement to somebody to say, no, I didn't just say it. Now I know who I need to be. I vocalized it, I verbalized it. But now let me start casting some votes for that new identity, that new me, right? And see, the reality is this, whoever's got the most votes is going to win. So if you start to like, every day you're going through the same motions and you're dealing with doubt and fear and not good enough and you're just doing the same thing over and over again, every time you take a step of action, like you're like, I'm going to do this and you don't do it, all that's doing is casting a vote for an identity that you're not supposed to hold. And if that has a lot more votes than the new identity, it's going to win. You're going to believe that. But if you start to do those little things, right, and you say, all right, I'm a disciplined person, and then in the morning you make your bed.
Yep.
Well, now you've got some momentum. Now you've made your bed and you've casted a vote that says, I'm a disciplined person. And then no matter how your day went, when you get home at the end of the night and you see your bed made, it reminds you, no, I'm a disciplined person. So the more votes you can cast for the new identity, the more likely you are to really create and make these new habits that will build the momentum needed to get you to cross that gap that you're looking to cross. And so
based on who you want to become, what's one new habit that you can start to do today that will help shape the identity into who that person you want to become? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Dude, I love that, man. It's so good.
I
So it's
appreciate you
like,
paraphrasing in a lot shorter term that made just as much sense. That was good.
yeah, man, that's
That
what
was
we're
good.
seeing.
That's
what
right.
we're
That's right.
seeing.
Yeah.
Who you want to become. What's one, because the truth is we all have systems,
Yep.
right? We all have systems, and we either have them by design or we have them by default,
Yep.
right? It's like I get in my truck and my natural system says pull out my phone, start scrolling Instagram, start seeing what everyone else is doing. That's a default system that my body just wants to like, hey, this feels good. It takes my mind. But like, I don't want to be that person that's just aimlessly scrolling. I want to be intentional with my time. So what's a system, what's a habit I can create that doesn't default, but that's intentional to get me to that 2.0 level? So instead of getting in my car, pulling out my phone and scrolling, what I do now is I get in my truck, I call someone. I get in my truck, I turn on a podcast. I get in my truck, I turn on positive, uplifting music instead of just aimlessly doing. Why? Because I want to level up. I want to get better. I want to get smarter. What's one action item that you can do today that will help you become the person you can become? We call them like keystone habits, right?
Yep.
So you have these one small habits that then affect all the other areas of your life. So if you want to get better in your fitness, well, what's what one small thing that you can do? Maybe it's setting your alarm 20 minutes earlier and not leaving your alarm by your bedside. Maybe putting your alarm in the bathroom, right? I've heard you say this before.
Yeah.
And then it forces you to get up. But then you don't just get up. Then you chug a cup of water that you've sat the night before right next to your alarm. And then what does that do? That then creates a habit that you get out of bed 30 minutes earlier, you chug a glass of water, then you're already up. You're not going to go back to bed. Now you go work out. Now you do your gratitude journal. Now you pray. Now you do your breathing exercises. Then that it starts to shape over time a new identity. Well, guess what? Now you feel better about yourself. That then creates better relationship with your kids because you're not angry at them. You're not frustrated in the morning. And then they actually like you. And then your wife or your husband is now likes you too. And it's like but it all started with one small habit. Setting your alarm 30 minutes earlier, putting it on the other side of the room. But it's like that one keystone habit that just like can affect the whole rest of your day. Or maybe for you, it's like, I want to grow closer to God. Well, what do? I don't just say it. I know that's who I want to become, but what's one thing I can do today? Maybe it's like, hey, I wake up. I mean, it's all the same principle, right? I can wake up earlier and instead of just like rushing to get out of the house, I create a space in my house where I pray. Mm-hmm. I write down what I'm grateful for. I read Psalms, I read Proverbs, I read something that's encouraging to me, that's applicable, that I can apply to my life that day. And then from that one small change in life, now over time, man, I'm slowly becoming the person who I know I could and should be. And so I love that what you said, just like, hey, personal growth challenge. Yeah. Who do I want to become and how do I get there? So that's for you, right? 3 who goals and then 3 action steps, 3 things I can do today to positively affect my life. And so,
yeah, and we're going to have bonus content as well that we're going to go through, like, unpacking all these areas that matter most, right? And like for us, like what's the one habit that was that keystone habit? Like when we did it, it made the biggest difference in leveling up and really crossing that gap. Because you're right, man, a lot of times like we see things, and I think this is also the big scheme to kind of keep us blinded from the value before us, is that we just see on the surface of like, all right, I just wake up, drink a glass of water, I don't go back to bed. Okay, I didn't go back to bed. And that's all we see. But there's so much underlining things that have so much value and hold so much value as far as what that means to us that we don't really see it until we kind of see it. Now you just start looking at yourself as like, man, I'm a part of the 5 a.m. club. I'm the person that does what I say I'm going to do. And the way to build self-confidence, man, which is such an essential part of the path journey of crossing the gap to new levels, is confidence. The way you build self-confidence is keeping the promises to yourself. So if I say I'm going to wake up early, and that's what most people do. Like when the alarm goes off, most people, right, are like, I got to get up. And the thing that they hate is when they hit snooze, because it's telling yourself, I don't do what I say I'm going to do. And that's why, I came up with that little trick of like putting the water in the bathroom, because when the alarm clock goes off and it's like 4 or 5 a.m., guess who doesn't want to hear that? My wife.
Yep.
So if I don't get up and go get it, she's kicking me like, what are you doing, fool? Like, you know, because you don't want to wake her up. You know, she's a sweetheart, dude. She's kind.
All the guys said amen.
She's the best. But dude, when she's sleeping, bro, you don't want to wake her up if she don't need to get up. And so now you drink the glass of water, and the reality is it's hard to get out of the bed in the morning, not because maybe you don't have desires, it's because you're dehydrated. You know what I mean? So on a physical level, you're just like dehydrated. So you drink that glass of water, now you're hydrated, you're more awake and alert. And then you go out there and now you've built a small win. Now you're starting to show yourself, in fact, that is who I am. And I think that it does need to be small, Brand. Like it doesn't got to be big. It's got to be small. If you want to go to the gym, put your shoes by your bed. And so when the alarm goes off, like your shoes and clothes is right there. So it's obvious, like, all right, it's small and it's obvious. I can see it. Maybe that's like, man, I want to start like journaling with my kids, right? And maybe you go get a journal with them, but you just keep forgetting to do it, right? And I've done this. I remember I wanted to start a family Bible study, and we found a place that had like age specific like study guides, right? And so like we're studying the same thing, but it's putting it in the context and it's teaching the kids at their level, right? I kept wanting to do it, but I kept not doing it until I put it on the nightstands. And so I put it in places like the kids, they were on their nightstand. So when I walked in, I would see their on their nightstand. I put it on my nightstand. And so now it's obvious, it's small, I'm going to do it. And so I think it's so important to make whatever habit you want, make it obvious. Whatever habit you want to stop doing, make it unobvious, like hide it. So if you're like, dude, I want to stop scrolling Instagram so much and like getting caught.
Take it off your home screen.
Take it off your home screen.
Yeah.
Hide it in an app, right? Where you got to actually put effort in. That's the trick. We make it so convenient to do the things that we know are keeping us from the next level habits that it's hard to not do them because they're so obvious. They're right there. So we can hide those things, right? And then put the things that we want to do in just like clear viewpoint, right there. Like if you like, I want to read a scripture a night. Well, before you leave to go to work or whatever you're doing that day, man, open your word up and stick it on your pillow, right? Like put your Bible on your pillow. So that's obvious, dude. When you get in bed, like you're not going to sleep on the Bible, man. Or maybe you do. Maybe that is what you need. That's next level faith, baby. But Mike, you're going to pick it up and you're going to read it, right? And so you want to make it obvious, right? You want to make it obvious. The next thing is making it easy. You want to make it easy is the next point. So small, obvious, and easy, right? Read one verse a day, journal one thing you're grateful for. Just make it easy. And then the last one is you want to make it automatic, right? You want to make it automatic. And so making it automatic would be like brain, like you said, like once I do this, then I do this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like stack it to a habit. Do you have a habit you can think of that you put in place because you connected it to another one? Like you always drink coffee, for instance, in the morning. So
I got a lot of bad habits I could think about that you just built up over time.
Yeah.
I mean, our life is full of habits. Our life is full of, these small daily decisions that lead us to where we're trying to go. And so for me, man, I can think of many, journaling in the morning, then leads to gratitude, then leads to trying to get my mind right and trying to, like when I have to write a sermon every week, like there's a certain process that I go through. I don't just, walk into my house, walk upstairs, and then all of a sudden start hearing from God about what he wants me to speak that Sunday. It's like, no, I go upstairs, I quiet everything down. I turn on some worship music. I pray. I get my mind like in a place of gratitude. I read scriptures. There's all kinds of stuff, man.
Sure.
There's a process to people forget the process. They forget the preparation, but they want the results.
You know what the Navy SEALs say?
What?
I heard this and I loved it.
Did I just steal it?
Well, no, it's good. They say you don't rise to your level of expectation. Like you're not just going to perform to your level of expectation. You fall to your level of preparation.
That's good.
Right. And so it's like, what is your preparation?
Yeah.
And you got to, the process of creating a new habit, dude, it's not easy.
No.
Because again, going back to what you started with, Brand, like we all know what we want, but it's a how part, right? And the reality is like, if you drink coffee every morning, you're like, man, I really want to start praying. Well, a great place to put that habit is after you pray. See, time and environment dictates a lot of what our habits are. Like we behave and do certain things based off environments that we go through throughout the day and based off times throughout the day. And so now you're like, then you just you want to write it down so it's clear and you want to vocalize it because now you're hearing it. You say, okay, once I make my cup of coffee, then I pray. And when you list it like that, man, you're so much more likely, like you're 100 times more likely to do it. And it's like, okay, once I pray, then I'm going to do my gratitude journal. Once I do my gratitude journal, then I'm going to spend 5 minutes in visualizing the ideal version of myself and me doing the behaviors of accomplishing the things I want to accomplish that day so that way I can cast the right votes. But you stack them. So it's habit stacking. Like, what can you connect to? Maybe it's like it's gotta be specific too. Like, it could be like, once I eat lunch, I'm gonna work out. But then the problem is that's not specific enough, because like, what if you're eating lunch on the road? You're not gonna do it, right? So you could say, once I close my laptop for lunch, then I'm going to do 15 push-ups next to my desk. That's specific. And now in your mind, when you vocalize it, you remember and say, okay, now that closing the laptop's a trigger. The desire is, I don't want to be so fat. The routine is, I do my 15 push-ups. The reward is, I feel good. I did what I said I'm going to do. And I'm going to now go do what I need to do.
That's great.
It's just the specificity to it is so important, man.
Wait, man, I feel like I got smarter. I got better. I feel like this, just me and you talking back and forth, is helping my momentum go into, you know, 2024. They're not just big goals, dreams, resolutions, but man, I got some practical things that we can start doing, some systems that can even help me level up my family, my fitness, my faith, my finances, my franchise, man. So I feel like I got a lot of value. Thank you so much for sharing everything you're sharing, man. I pray that, you know, everyone watching got a ton of value out of this. Like Paul said, make sure you stick around for the bonus content. We're going to have some really, really even more practical application that you could apply to your life. And again, we're just trying to help you level up in every area of your life that matters most to you. And so, Paul McLean.
Hey, thank you, dude. Hey, share this, guys. Like, I think most people, they want to make a difference. I know for myself, you know, and I would assume you guys and Brandon, definitely, you know, you want to make a difference. You want to help people. You love people. You want to serve people. And sometimes a simple share will do that, where somebody would not be aware of this kind of training and this kind of education on how to go out there and change their levels. And this would specifically speak to them and make an impact and help them. A couple different quick resources I'll give you guys that'll help is Atomic Habits. It's a great book that kind of articulates and goes through this stuff in a great way. And so the more time you spend in these areas, the more likely you are to level up in the areas that you want to level up. And so, guys, today start it. Don't be like what everybody does and think like, man, tomorrow I'll get after it. No, pause this, stop this. Write down right now the 3 things, the 3 who goals. Who are you? What's the single biggest thing that if you did would make the massive difference in your life? And then as the bonus content comes out, guys, watch that because we're going to go ahead and unpack specific things that maybe will be relatable to you as well, that'll help you impact your life in the areas that matter most. So, Brand, I love you, brother. Thank you. Guys, go out there, make it a massive week. We love you. Stay strong, stay steadfast, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.